Welcome to today's explainer. If you've ever stared at a product on a store shelf and wondered, how did this get here? Or why it suddenly disappears? Or why, out of nowhere, its production moves halfway across the world? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we aren't just staring at some dry standard marketing chart. No way. We're actually decoding the secret engine behind global economics. We're tracking the literal life, death, and global journey of a product. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the life cycle of a product, we first need to completely rethink what a product actually is. Check out this definition from scholar N.G. Nokoi. A product isn't just, a physical object sitting in a cardboard box. It's a bundle of physical and psychological satisfaction. When you buy something, you aren't just handing over cash for plastic, metal, or code. You're purchasing an experience, maybe convenience, status, or even just peace of mind. We've really got to elevate our thinking here because it's the demand for that psychological satisfaction that breathes life into the product in the very first place.
Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the anatomy of a product. Second, the 4 stages of its life. Third, going global with Vernon's theory. Fourth, portfolios and cheating death. And finally, flaws in the machine.
Section 1. Anatomy of a product. The S-curve life cycle.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it perfectly captures a product as a living, breathing organism. Think about it. It's conceived, born into the market, it grows, hits a mature peak, and then, ultimately, it dies. Notice the 2 tracking lines mapped out here. We've got sales and time. The curve starts out kind of flat and slow, ramps up rapidly, crests in the smooth, rounded peak, and eventually just falls away. What this brilliantly illustrates is the totally escapable reality of commerce. Honestly, no matter how groundbreaking the innovation is, profits and sales inevitably rise and fall over time. Gravity always wins.
Section 2. The 4 stages. Pivoting strategy.
So we can't just passively watch our product travel along this curve. Our entire strategy has to aggressively pivot. Let's walk through this matrix to see how tactics shift. In the introduction stage, things are very measured. The product is unknown, costs are super high, and their promotion is heavily educational. You're literally teaching people why they even need this thing. But then, as we hit to growth stage, the pace becomes rapid. Sales volume surges, competitors start attacking from all sides, and you have to start dropping prices to match them while heavily expanding your distribution channels. The 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion, are in constant flux as the market dynamics really speed up. Eventually, things stabilize as we enter the absolute longest phase of a product's life, and that's maturity. Here, sales peak and the market is completely saturated. Prices drop to their absolute lowest as intense, grinding competition takes over. Notice how the focus completely shifts here. You aren't educating the market anymore. You are fighting tooth and nail just to maintain your current market share through brand differentiation. Your entire goal at this point is securing repeat purchases from your existing customers. It is for sure a slow, grinding war of attrition.
Section 3. Going global. Vernon's theory.
So far, we've basically looked at the product lifecycle from the perspective of a single market, or maybe a single store shelf. But economist Raymond Vernon actually expanded this to a whole macroeconomic level. Vernon pointed out a super fascinating paradox. Why do advanced markets, like the United States, invent so many labor-saving devices? Well, it's actually because of uniquely high unit labor costs and high average incomes. Look at the quote mapped out here. It was exactly the high cost of hiring laundresses that sparked the invention of the drip-dry shirt and the home washing machine. High-income markets with super expensive labor are literally the ultimate breeding ground for initial product innovations. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this sparks a massive cycle of global migration. Step 1. The product is innovated and produced locally in that high-income market where the need first popped up. Step 2. Demand grows and the product becomes standardized for mass output. Step 3. Other advanced countries start wanting it, so naturally you begin exporting. But here's the absolutely crucial step 4. As the product matures and price competition gets incredibly fierce, manufacturers can no longer afford that expensive local labor. So what do? They move production overseas to developing nations to drastically lower their costs. The product lifecycle literally redraws the map of global trade.
Section 4. Portfolios and cheating death.
This brings up a very logical but honestly very pressing question. If every single product eventually reaches the decline stage and dies, whether it's made at home or overseas, how on earth do massive corporations survive for decades? Well, and this brilliantly illustrates the answer. We have the famous Boston Consulting Group, or BCG matrix. To survive, a company cannot just rely on one single product. They have to manage an entire portfolio, categorized into this rather quirky business menagerie you see here: stars, question marks, cash cows, and dogs. You've got to balance products at different stages of their life cycles just to keep the whole company afloat.
The core dynamic of this matrix is a fairly brutal but absolutely necessary strategy. Look at the cash cows. These are your mature products. They have high market share but pretty low growth. The thing is, they generate massive amounts of cash because all their development costs were paid off years ago. Now, look at the stars. High growth, high market share. But man, they burn through cash like crazy just to expand capacity. So the golden rule of the portfolio? You have to relentlessly milk the cows to feed the stars. It sounds funny, but you're literally using the profits from yesterday's mature products to fund tomorrow's big innovations.
But obviously, you also want to keep those cash cows alive as long as humanly possible, right? Harvard economist Theodore Levitt suggested we don't just passively accept the decline stage. We can actually try to cheat death through extension strategies. You can launch marketing campaigns to promote way more frequent use among your current buyers, find totally new uses for the product, or even expand your market to entirely new users. The whole goal is to deliberately push that S-curve upward again. You're sustaining the profit curve instead of just letting it slip into the abyss.
Section 5. Flaws in the machine.
Okay, so we've spent this entire explainer building up this elegant, highly predictable machine of product life cycles, matrices, and global trade. But what if it's all an illusion? Take a look at the stark warning published in the Harvard Business Review. It simply says, "Forget the PLC concept." Wow, that is a massive narrative speed bump for literally everything we've just discussed. It really forces us to stop and ask, are we placing way too much faith in this neat little S-curve?
Marketing expert Jeff Fripp has some incredibly sharp criticisms of this entire framework that we really need to address. First off, the model assumes every product goes through all the stages. But in reality, many new products fail instantly. Like, they never even make it out of the introduction phase. Second, standardizing this single S-curve shape across all textbooks creates a totally false sense of security because different products behave in wildly different ways. And third, while the turning points of the curve are super obvious in hindsight, trying to forecast them in advance is incredibly difficult. Blindly trusting this model can actually lead you to overinvest in a complete dud or panic way too prematurely.
So the crucial point is this. If you look at your sales data, incorrectly assume your product has entered the inevitable decline phase, and decide to slash your advertising and marketing budget to save money, well, of course your sales are going to drop. Is the product lifecycle a roadmap for success or a dangerous self-fulfilling prophecy? If you treat a product like it's dying, you might just be the one pulling the trigger. It's a tool, you guys, not a crystal ball. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the models, and I'll catch you next time.